Is Microsoft Unified Support busting your IT budget? Well, you're not alone. US Cloud is the global leader in third-party Microsoft enterprise support, and they're helping enterprises slash cost by 30 to 50% versus Microsoft Unified, all while getting faster response times from domestic engineers. No offshoring, no long waits, just expert support you can count on 24/7, 365. Trusted by 50 of the Fortune 500 companies and offering senior-level engineers with an average of 14 years experience with Microsoft technologies, US Cloud is a smarter alternative for premium Microsoft support without the premium price. Ready to make the switch? Book a call at uscloud.com to get started today. That's uscloud.com.
Cloudcast Media presents from the massive studios in Raleigh, North Carolina. This is the Cloudcast with Aaron Delp and Brian Gracely, bringing you the best of cloud computing from around the world.
Good morning, good evening, wherever you are, and welcome back to the Cloudcast. We are coming to you live from the massive Cloudcast studios here in Raleigh, North Carolina. Hope everybody is doing well. We are basically at the halfway point of 2025, so hope everybody's had a good year so far and looking forward to the second half of the year. We're going to do something a little bit different this weekend. Not doing so much a weekend perspective, trying something a little bit different. We've been, as you know, if you've listened to any of the Cloud and AI News of the Month or just any of the shows that we've been doing, we've been trying to do a little more collaboration with the folks from Software Defined Talk and with Cote and with Briandon Whichard and so forth. And I think the feedback has been pretty good. I think when we look at some of the numbers from Cloud News of the Week, especially when we do some cross-promotional stuff, numbers have always been good. I think we have a good time talking to those folks. They give us a good perspective on things, and I think it's fun to do some crossover between the audiences. So one of the things we've been trying to do, or at least talking amongst ourselves, is looking at some new formats for stuff. I know, the interviews are great for us. I know Weekend Perspective, we get some very good perspective on things, but we're always looking for different ways to see how people consume information, how much time they want to spend doing it, how much depth do we want to go into with things. And so for this weekend's perspective, I'm going to give you something that Briandon and Cote put together just recently. They're kind of borrowing a format that has been out there in some other shows, trying to do it in about 15 minutes to kind of get to the point, talk in a little bit of depth about a topic. And they have some fun digging into kind of the differences, the similarities, the trade-offs, the pros and cons of AI native applications versus sort of AI or AI add-on applications. And so this is a fun show. I think they do a really good job with it, and hopefully you guys enjoy it. So let us know if you enjoy this format. It doesn't involve Aaron and I, but we may see us involved with this format as well. So I want to give it a try. I've got some other travel stuff, so this makes it nice for me to jump in and bring this in. But give us some feedback. Let us know what you think of this one, and we will hope you enjoy the show. Today's show is sponsored by Vasion Print. The problem with print is it's a resource suck. IT teams are spending too much time on troubleshooting and upkeep. The biggest offender? Print servers. So get rid of them. Swap your outdated, resource-intensive infrastructure for Vasion Print, formerly known as Printer Logic, and get serverless, direct IP, secure printing for any device, anywhere. Centralized print management reduces overhead and workload and increases productivity, which is great for your IT team and your bottom line. Increase security, remove scripts and GPOs, and enable self-service user deployments. Secure, seamless, and scalable. That's what you get when you eliminate print servers. See how at vasion.com.
Cote, I've been thinking a lot about this idea of AI native versus AI add-on. And this kind of came out of the conversation I heard where Ben Thompson interviewed the Cursor CEO. And what he was getting at was he felt like Cursor had a significant advantage because they had built, if you will, Cursor from the ground up with AI as a kind of a fundamental component to it versus Microsoft's approach, which is using VS Code, which are really kind of bolting on GitHub Copilot. And the idea that he was kind of showing was that by doing that, you kind of fundamentally change the application. So the idea is that sort of as soon as you open up Cursor, the AI is immediately looking at everything that you do, your entire project. And if you will, it has access to all the functions inside the editor. And that fundamentally changes the way that you interact with the application versus, the more traditional plugin kind of use case. And really, if you think of it, a chat bot is almost like a plugin, right? You're always kind of going outside your application to, if you will, get advice from the AI, then you bring it in versus having the AI watching over you. So I think this idea, this is sort of to me, kind of going forward, thinking about that the cliche or kind of the thing we always hear about is everyone will just integrate AI into their specific SaaS applications or their specific applications. But I think that sort of maybe misses the broader point. It's like those applications that, if you will, take a ground up approach, may be much better positioned to, if you will, build applications that are fundamentally different or interact a little bit differently. I don't know. What do you think about these ideas? Have you thought about this at all?
Absolutely. And especially since I try to get some value out of Gemini, right? That's a good example. But first, like the Cursor versus VS Code is an interesting example because they're both based on the same code base, right? So like Cursor has proven that you could change the code base, right? It's just sort of because they did. To me, what you're saying gets down to I'm going to say product management. I think it's more than product management, but it gets down to like the product management just decided not to do that. Now, the reason they may decide not to do it and instead have it be a plugin instead of like fungally seeping into every aspect of VS Code is, they might, everyone who does software, like one of the principal things is like you can't dramatically change everything between versions, right? And so there might be that kind of stability that they have, but in that respect, it's a kind of an odd example because technically, I'm repeating myself. Technically, it's possible, but I think the point you're making is let me do it from the Gemini standpoint. Is that so? Gemini tries to, and when I say Gemini, I mean putting it in like Google Docs and Google Sheets and Gmail, right? Mm-hmm. And it's trying to walk the line between these two things, like. You can get a normal chat app with Gemini, which recently I think is pretty good. I don't know. That's I haven't evaluated it long enough. But what they turned it on at work. And so I use it a little bit more. And it has two main integration points. One, there's like an embedded chat window that has the context of what you're doing. So you can ask it to do things. And then you can kind of sort of right click here and there. But I think it's suffering from whatever you're talking about. Because it's pretty shitty, like and what's shitty is the interaction between the two. So, for example, I would have a big, as you can imagine, I've got an 11 and a 13 page white paper, and just to have fun, and also because it would be cool if it worked, I open it up and I get the little sidebar chat thing, and I say, write me an 800 word blog post based on this, and it puts all of that out in the chat thing, and then you can say to insert it into your main document.
Exactly.
Right?
And that's sort of the add-on component. Yes, exactly.
Right. And so it's very, I would say, primitive in the way that it operates, right? Mm-hmm. So I did notice it has a new thing, which is like create a new document with this in it, that's interesting, right? Mm-hmm. Now, in contrasting it, if you look at how Canvas works in ChatGPT, Canvas has an equally bad problem in the opposite direction, right? Which is like, so you're in ChatGPT, you type something in the chat window, and then you can ask it to open a canvas for you. And it opens this editable field that actually is pretty cool because you can do editing passes of it where it like kind of flashes the lines and does the editing. And so I like that part, but what I want is I want it to be in Google Docs.
Right. I think you're hitting on the perfect example. And that's where I was thinking along this too. Is it's like I have adopted the workflow and Google Gemini has Canvas as well. Like, so I have adopted the workflow of like, if you will, original writing where I want like help or I want, to do something like you were talking for. It's like, I will start with, in this case, Gemini and Canvas, or it's just as equally is good to start with ChatGPT and Canvas. But either way, you want to be in Canvas because that's the AI native editor. Right now, it doesn't have all the things that you want, like bold and formatting and like, all of the features of a word processor, but it has a little bit of basic formatting. But more importantly, is it sitting right with you, and it has full access to edit anything inside that canvas, and then it simultaneously can be making suggestions to you in the chat, right? And I find that like that's like, if you will, the workflow of like creativity or productivity, right? Because that's where like I actually need, that's where I'm getting a lot of value from the AI. That's what I want. So like if I was to only have one or the other, and I guess we both have access to both of these, right? Is that like, well, what I do is I then, once I'm satisfied with the writing and it's sort of like in the format that I want. I revert back to the old school cut and paste. So for me, it's probably more likely maybe it has to go into Word for a corporate kind of thing, or it has to go into maybe it goes into Google Docs for some other reason. And then I have to manually go through and kind of, if you will, correct all the formatting, right? Because it's no matter what you do, it's because it tries to spit out different markdown sometimes, like text or whatever. So that part of it is still messed up. But that to me is like you're getting to the exact point of where I want. It's like what I think will be very interesting going forward is like, which position would you rather be in? Would you rather have, if you will, let's just use ChatGPT Canvas, and what their role will be then is to then implement the more, if you will, traditional features of a word processor, right? Which just become, if you will, tools. If you want to think of it, the AI landscape, it's just sort of like, let's just make all these things like bold, italics, spell check, formatting, all that kind of stuff. You can just make those APIs, which become tools to the UI, in this case, the agent. And it's sort of, if you will, I'm going to call it an AI native word processing tool. So that's sort of option one. Right. Or are you Google? Because Google has both, right? Because they have the Gemini Canvas and they have actual docs. But to your point about before, just like Microsoft has VS Code, but I think they're afraid to change it too much. So what they're kind of doing is they're artificially limiting it, right? Because I get so frustrated. I find it more frustrating to be in the Gemini or to be in Google Docs and in the chat and it say, I can't do that. It's very
frustrating,
but you can cut and paste it. Right. So like, which do you think is the more preferred position, if you will? It's like the challenger with the new thing that will have to build all the old things, or if you will, the incumbent with the old things that has to somehow integrate the new thing.
Yeah. Well, as I get older, Briandon, as you know, I'm a fan of incremental change. I just want the things I use to get better. And I think, as you're going through that, like I'm thinking more about the Google Docs with Gemini experience, right? And I think what I want is, as one representative use case, I want to be able to like highlight a paragraph of text and go over to the chat interface and say, fix this paragraph, right? And like that's what it seems to be lacking that I would expect is the chat box is getting my document as context. So it obviously has access to the text as if I had uploaded a file to like one of the chat apps, but it doesn't seem to be able to go to the text and do things. Right. Or know that I have something highlighted. So in contrast, and I guess Cursor is like this, but when I use Claude or when I use ChatGPT Desktop with IntelliJ, those two things are doing what I'm saying. So in ChatGPT, I can I don't know what they call it. I can bind it to IntelliJ and it knows the Java code that I'm looking at. And I can say like, can you edit whatever method? And unless I'm totally wrong, it can actually call back to IntelliJ and edit that method for you, right? Mm-hmm. So you can kind of like remotely control IntelliJ from the chat interface. And it obviously has the context of everything. And so I think if I was in Google Docs and I tried to do something in Sheets the other day and I was just like, I'm going to check back in 6 months later, see what's happening here. But really, that's kind of the flow that I want with Google Docs. You could almost call it like the annoying executive thing, where like you're working on a document, a press release with an executive, and instead of the executive just typing, they're telling you what to type, right? And like that's the experience that I want, where like I want Gemini to be able to type stuff. And then also, I'm remembering I tried to do something you were just saying, which is I also would like to say things like, let's make every header 3 a header 2. Mm-hmm. And like I think Gemini would just be like, hey man, I don't know what you're talking about. Right. Like if I tried to do that. But that's what I want to be able to do, is like use the chat thing to change the main thing. And of course, I want to right click on it and have that show up and, like all that kind of stuff. But that's the basics that I would want.
No, I think what you're getting at, and I think Cursor, we keep using that. Maybe Windsurf is just as good, and maybe some others. But like when you start to like kind of experience it, right? So I think what you're getting at before is like, Cursor is not only like adding code for you. It's adding files. It's deleting the files that you don't need.
Yeah.
You can then ask it to, it's gotten to the point now that it has the ability to really run commands, right? Or so, you can either tell it to run or will kind of show you the command. So it's like, once you kind of get your work done and you're happy with it, you're like, will you push this to GitHub, right? And sure enough, it'll just start to pop up the run commands, or you can let it just do it, right? And just say, okay, well, here's the commit message. Okay, now I'm going to push it. Now I'm going to sync it. And it's sort of, if you will, it's seeing everything, right? And it's like, and that's where I think these tools to what you're going for. And maybe, one of the examples we like to use is, our poor investment bankers, on Wall Street. It's sort of like, after we did the content creation of our presentation, what you were talking about before is like, it would be so great for it to either help you or do something along the lines of like, hey, go through this and make sure all the fonts are consistent. Like, you could basically say like my presentation template or my company means we should only have these fonts. Show me any place these fonts are not used correctly, or correct them, right? Same thing too. It's like, show me, make sure that everything has a footer and every footer is consistent on every single page, right? I mean, these are the things you do at the end of a presentation when you're just polishing, right? And there's a million other things you could do. You could even like McKinsey, right? McKinsey famously has a very, if you will, specific presentation style. You could go through, like, read every title of every single presentation slide and ensure it follows the McKinsey standard, right? I mean, all of these things, right? That's what you want, right? It's sort of like, when I'm done creating and now I'm polishing, and this is where I think none of the tools are, right? And I think this is back to like actually doing the work to say, okay, I need to fundamentally make every feature of, in this case, we're using word processor or a presentation software. I need to make it's almost like every menu item, right, needs to be, if you will, a tool that the AI can see, right? It's sort of like, It can find things, it can edit things, it can reformat things, it can change colors. And like that to me is sort of like the nirvana of where we wanted to get to. And I think, but to me, that's fundamentally to your original point in opening this is like, we have to be careful about like too much change people don't like, but to really get to where we want to go, there may be some disruptive change to get there.
And maybe if we were not cynical, but like tragically honest with ourselves, not with ourselves, but with the history of computing, what you were just going over assumes that there's people at Google who know how to recode a menu five down on the stack of something, right? Like for example, like, do they know how strike through can be applied to text, or how you would change the things like there? So I don't know. I think based on the way things have happened in the past, you probably do have to rewrite the thing, which means we would go into Canvas, and all Canvas is going to really need is just like better versioning and to be able to save the file to a drive somewhere. Like it's more, and I don't think you can insert pictures, but you could do the baseline of what's in there, and then you just need to build up the trust that it's not going to lose your files.
Yeah, I think you said it well. And I think that's sort of the message that I think we're going to take away from this whole idea is that, like, ultimately, for tools to be great, I think they're going to have to be AI native. And that may require a little bit more work than we were maybe all originally thinking about it. So everyone, you have your marching orders. Go out there and start making your tools AI native.
Yeah, don't make a writing tool like an Apple. It's no good.
Thank you for listening to The Cloudcast. Please visit thecloudcast.net to find more shows, show notes, videos, and everything social media.